This conference will now be recorded.
All right, folks. So it's glad to be with you all. Truly, I miss being at school, and I miss being able to have the opportunity to teach you all in person. So we do the next best thing, and that's do this remote class. And I'm grateful for the technology that allows us to have an interactive class. So, like I said, if you have a question, please post it in the chat box, and I'll do the best that I can. We're not going to be going over all of this PowerPoint because I already have taken the time in class, in lecture, to review all of the structures as far as for the skeletal system. I want to also start off by saying that next week is when, and this has been challenging. A week from today is when I'll have my procedure. So as such, we are not going to have our test number 2 and practical exam number 1 next week. So that'll be the following Monday, okay? So it will not be this Monday. So next week, we won't be meeting on campus. We'll be meeting remotely. So I'm gonna have the whole class meet with me on Monday for a remote lab. And then next Wednesday is my procedure. So I think that I'll probably end up having a remote lecture, like a recorded lecture that I'll share with you all, and we'll touch base as far as maybe during the latter part of the week. So we'll figure it out. So here we are. We have chapter 7, the skeletal system. And so let's do a little discussion regarding the skeletal system. So just like with any other body systems that we've talked about, you need to be able to really know the function of each of these systems, these body systems. And it's really important that, so as we're getting into now the skeletal system, then next will be the articulations, so the joints, right, that are comprised and contained within the skeletal system. And then, thank you, Angela. And then also we will be going into then the muscular system, and finally end the semester with the nervous system. So these different systems, you need to know the basic functions of these systems and such. And so, you'll see here as far as that providing a structure, providing protection, providing an anchor for muscles so that movement can take place upon contraction of musculature, providing and I like to say it's a bank, like we would go and deposit a check into the bank. Well, in the case of the skeletal system, we contain different mineral salts and such, and calcium is very important to be stored in the skeletal system because we use calcium. You're going to see as we go into the next couple of body systems, as far as the muscular and nervous system, calcium is an integral part of those systems being able to perform their functions. So we'll be reviewing and going over as far as how these the bank that's present within the skeletal system, we're able to make deposits and withdrawals and such. So here you're looking at the functions. So we see here as far as supporting surrounding tissue, protecting vital organs and soft tissues, as I mentioned just before. And I mentioned about storing mineral salts, and also about the actual anchors and such for muscles, but also manufacturing of blood cells. So hemopoietic tissue present within the red bone marrow, really quite important, folks. So yeah, so blood cell production present within the red bone marrow of the skeletal system. Knowing that present wisthin would be cartilage, and primarily it's hyaline cartilage, but not necessarily, because we've looked at, when we discussed the histology, we talked about location for fibrocartilage, location for elastic cartilage, and then hyaline cartilage. And hyaline cartilage, we said, really is the model upon which the skeletal system, primarily the majority of the skeletal system, is created as far as fetal development is concerned. So hyaline cartilage, really important cartilage, and that's what's left as far as on the ends of bones for the articular cartilage, as well as the synovial, the plate, as far as the growth plate is concerned, the epiphyseal plates. So that's also hyaline cartilage. And then those hyaline cartilage growth plates, those epiphyseal plates, They become bone, they ossify as a child is completed their growth. So their growth as far as in height, once that stops, then those growth plates will then end up ossifying and becoming bone, and you'll just see a line upon X-ray examination. You'll see here also that there are ligaments and tendons. And so ligaments, we know, connect and anchor bone to bone, and a tendon will anchor a muscle to the bone, in particular, skeletal muscle. I'm sorry, let me just get a drink here. And so please note that as far as if we have a sprain and a strain, so sprains, ligamentous sprains, and then tendinous strains. So a sprain is an overstretching of ligaments and could be micro or major tears, and a strain, S-T-R-A-I-N, would be micro or major tearing and overstretching of tendons, muscle and tendon. Okay. So as I said to you before there, as far as the fetal skeleton is concerned, again, except for flat bone, primarily it's hyaline cartilage that this model for the skeletal system of the fetus will begin as, an ossification and growth will begin. You'll see here longitudinal growth, so growth in height and length. 15 years of age, you know, approximate for girls and 16 for boys. But folks, this is just, you know, it can go, bone maturation can go up until 21 years of age, so growth can still take place and occur. And know that, so when a person has an increase in growth hormone, okay, so a little bit regarding endocrine system here. If a patient has a tumor of the anterior pituitary, and they're kicking out an increased amount of growth hormone, so it can lead to a growth in height. If they stop growing it, as far as height and longitudinal growth is concerned, they can still have growth present in their facial bones, as well as their hands and their feet, and that would be called acromegaly. Acro, A-C-R-O-M-E-G-A-L-Y, acromegaly. And that's continued growth as a result of an increase in growth hormone after a patient has stopped growing as far as in height and such. So deposition of bone. So know that, right? So as we're talking and thinking about bone, I'm going to hit my table right now. So nobody's at the door. I just was banging on the table. The table's hard, right? The table's hard and it's non-living, right? But we know that bone is hard and yet it is living. And so we have bone that is being broken down and built back up all throughout our lives, right? Slows down as we get older and such, but still there's this continually renewal of bone. And so you'll see here that osteoblasts, so these cells, these specific cells, so an osteocyte would be a mature bone cell, okay? Osteoblasts help to build and synthesize bone. Osteoclasts are involved in actual the breaking down of bone. So you'll see here as far as bone reabsorption and remodeling, creating new bone and such, okay? So really important to know that the blasts build, they synthesize, the clasts break down, and the sites, the osteocytes, those are mature bone cells. So you'll see here as far as intramembranous and endochondral. So this is types of fetal bone development, ossification, okay? This is prior to the child being born. The endochondral ossification, so if you think of, you see there as far as the chondro, that would be the word root for cartilage. So bone develops inside cartilage environment. So hyaline cartilage in particular. And you'll see here that intramembranous, so you're thinking of the cranial bones, flat bones. This would be then dense connective membranes as far as ossification is concerned. So there's a combination of this intramembranous and as well as endochondral ossification for fetal development of the skeletal system. Okay. So as far as calcium is concerned. So really, calcium is a big deal. Calcium is, like I said, very important for the nervous system to function, as well as for the muscular system to contract and such, okay? So you'll see here that in order to get the calcium out of the bone, okay, or to store calcium, right? I'm going to turn on a fan. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Okay. Oh golly, too funny. All right, so PTH, parathormone or parathyroid hormone, right, and calcitonin, right? These are hormones that will work in order to help to maintain blood calcium levels, okay? It's very important. So know this, that if there's an excess amount of calcium, that it will be excreted, right, from the body. But know that as far as if we need more calcium into the body system, as far as into being released into the blood, what are we going to do? Well, PTH will increase blood calcium levels by increasing osteoclastic activity. So the osteoclasts break down bone. So if they break down bone, what's going to be released? Calcium into the blood. So this is an important thing. So really, when the body needs to make a withdrawal of calcium from the skeletal system bank, so to speak, right? So we're going to then use parathyroid hormone. No problem, no problem. Again, this is going to be being recorded, so we're good. And then as far as if there's too high levels, right? So if we have too high levels of blood calcium and we want to reduce those blood levels of calcium, then we're going to then have calcitonin being released, and this will allow for inhibition of osteoclastic activity and increase of calcium storage by the bone. Know that PTH has a stronger effect on blood calcium levels than does calcitonin, okay? So PTH is released and produced by, yeah, sorry, Angela. I'm sorry you guys might have some issues, but just, again, know that this is being recorded and you'll be able to review it on YouTube. So parathyroid hormone, PTH, this is produced by the parathyroid glands on the posterior aspect of the thyroid gland. Calcitonin is released by and synthesized and released by the thyroid gland itself, okay? But again, like I said, PTH has a stronger effect on blood calcium levels than does calcitonin. You'll see here, as far as bone composition is concerned, there's inorganic and organic composition. And so, folks, and on your test, on the test that I had just given you as far as test number 1, collagen was an answer. It's a protein. It's a very strong protein. Throughout the body tissues, collagen fibers are crucial, and they're also crucial in bone. And we will see, as far as I'll share an image of compact and spongy bone, and you'll see that collagen fibers play an integral role as far as providing strength as well as a little bit of flexibility within the bone, okay? Now, these spinal curves, so you'll see here as far as kyphosis, lordosis, hyperkyphosis, and hyperlordosis, and scoliosis. So let's take a look at an image here that I'll share with you all. So let's escape, there we go. I'm going to share an image with you here, and I'll post this in documents and resources, okay? So you'll see here, reading left, so we have a normal spine, and what you're looking at, folks, so in fetal development, the primary curve is the kyphotic curve. So you see here in the thoracic region, kyphosis. You see also in sacrum that there's a kyphosis. It's a posterior curve, right? Now, the anterior curves, the lordotic curves in the cervical and lumbar region are formed as a result of the baby creeping and crawling and arching, and those curves develop when there's proper creeping and crawling and such in young children development, okay? You'll see here that this is a hyperlordosis, there's an increase in a curve here. Not so much many times an increase in curve in the cervical area, but definitely in the lower back, the lumbar region, there can be a hyperlordotic curve. And as far as a kyphosis or a hyperkyphotic curve in the thoracic area here, so when a patient has what's called a dowager's hump and a hump on the really superior aspect of the thoracic region and inferior aspect of the cervical region, you've seen it, I'm sure. But you'll see here that there should be normal curves in order to have a stable and strong spine. Any increase in these curves can lead to instability within the spine. And then also, let me just show you as far as what a scoliosis, which I know that you all have an idea, but just to show you as a review. And let me look, I'll look at your question in just one moment there, okay? So here you're looking at as far as, so just show you this is, so here we have different types of scoliosis, and I'll share this image with you all also, okay? But you can see here that there should be no curve when you're looking at someone as far as looking at their posterior or looking at them from A to P, anterior to posterior, or as we're looking at this patient, P to A, posterior to anterior, there's no curve, right? It's nice and straight. But here you're seeing that there are different types of curves, okay? And these are abnormal and not healthy and create an instability within the spine as far as its ability to function properly, and also can contribute to pain and discomfort for the patient, okay? Let's see here, let's come back here, okay. All right, so I'll share those two images with you all. So compact and spongy bone, we'll look at an image in just a moment. So compact bone and spongy bone, or cancellous bone or trabecular bone, right? A couple of AKAs for that. We've seen those in the lab. Remember, we talked about, I said to you that the osteon is the functional unit for the compact bone. It's really like a tube of bone, and we'll look at an image in just a moment. You'll see here that spongy bone has holes present, and hence the term spongy, okay? And you'll see here that cancellous bone, spongy bone, the marrow is present. So let's take a look and see as far as, yeah, so let's do that. I'm gonna go online here and just look up an image for us to be able to review and go over. Okay, so we have here compact and spongy bone. And so this, I think this, let's see, yeah. Okay, I like this image. Okay, so let's make this image larger. Give me a moment here. Okay, so and we'll increase it in size also. All right, folks, so as we're looking at this image here, what we're seeing is that as we look at, this would be considered a long bone, and in particular, you're looking at a humerus, right? So we'll look here and see that at the ends of the bone, the long bone, we call this the epiphysis. Epiphyses, plural, if we're talking about both of them, but one end is called an epiphysis. The diaphysis is the shaft of the long bone, okay? Now, what you'll see here, and I'll answer that question, I'll come to that question after I discuss this, okay? You'll see here is that in the medullary cavity right here, and you're just seeing a portion of it, and you're seeing it also right here, okay, contains yellow marrow. This contains adipose tissue. On the ends of bone, we have red marrow, okay? And this is the hemopoietic tissue. This would be the tissue that produces blood cells and such, the red marrow. But what you're seeing also is that this cavity, okay, if we were to remove the marrow, you would see that we have spongy bone lining that cavity, and that spongy bone is covered in endosteum. The spongy bone is covered in endosteum. The compact bone, which I'm highlighting for you right here, and right here, compact bone, and that's also this bone right here. Okay, right here. This is spongy bone. Here's compact bone. That spongy bone is covered in periosteum. So the outer covering of bone for compact bone is periosteum. The outer covering of spongy bone is endosteum. Okay, and you can see that that spongy bone, that trabecular bone, it has a lot of these rods of bone, and then vascularity can pass through these holes, as well as there can be present, right, in the cavity here, this adipose tissue, this yellow bone marrow. Okay, all right, and here you're seeing this periosteum right here being pulled away. Okay, so I'll share this image with you also. Okay, at the end of class and such, sometime later on today, I'm going to have to. I'll take a break after I teach here tonight, and then I'll post it sometime tonight or tomorrow morning. Let's see here. So as far as the compact bone is concerned, so take a look at this here. You see those, remember we talked about in lab, looking at compact bone, it looks like it's like a tree trunk that's been cut and that's what's left. Well, what's the reason for that? Well, really this compact bone is covered in periosteum. See this term right here? Periosteum. Spongy bone is covered in endosteum. Okay. Now these rods of bone, these osteons, really are, you'll see here that they go the length of compact bone, the length of the shaft or the diaphysis, right? So you see how they're cut here. That's why they look like a tree trunk, that they're cut, but really know that it's a tubular structure. And within the center part of that tube, see that these holes here, these large holes, that's called the central canal, okay, of the osteon of compact bone. And you'll see here that blood vessels pass through these holes and such. Okay. Let's go back to our PowerPoint here. But before we do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can answer a question. Okay, let's see here. All right, are there certain treatments to, let's see, okay, let me go to this one first. So Kimber asks, is it possible to have both hyperlordosis and hyperkyphosis? If so, is it called something different? So can you have both? You can, but not normally. That's not normally the case. Really, what'll, yes, it can happen. But so you'd have a lumbar hyperlordosis and a thoracic hyperkyphosis. So that's how you'd properly label that and identify that, okay? Are there certain treatments to fix hyperkyphosis or lordosis? Yes, so chiropractic care, orthopedic care, physical therapy can work to help to correct to a point, but usually what happens is once it gets to this extreme, it's very difficult and very tough to change, to create change. And if the patient is older, this can be an issue as far as then bone development and degradation and arthritic changes can really prevent much of a change to take place. And so then you're looking at surgical treatment. Okay. Very good. I'm going to bring back my sharing of my screen with you all and come back to the PowerPoint here. Okay. So then what you're seeing here is that this is a, let me come back to the screen here. So here we have then called the Herversion System of compact bone. Okay. Do you have a question? Question, anybody? Okay. So the Herversion System. So this is where we're looking at as far as the osteon is concerned. And so the osteon has this central canal that runs parallel to the surface. And that surface is covered in, again, periosteum, okay? The endosteum covers the spongy bone, okay? They're both connective tissue coverings, okay? And so you'll see here that the osteon, also known as the Herversion canal, surrounded by concentric rings of bone. I like to think of the osteon as if you think of a bunch of rolls of paper towel, and that the concentric layers of paper towel represent those layers of bone, right? And they're actually called concentric lamellae. concentric lamellae. I'll put that in. Let's see. I'll just say it again. So those concentric rings of bone. I'll just put it right here. I'll just put the term right here, and I would write it down. Concentric lamellae. Right. So that term. So really, when you see the term lamellae, lamellae represents layers of bone. Okay, so when you see this term lamellae or lamella, represents lamella, one layer, lamellae, multiple layers, plural. So that would be layers of bone. So concentric layers of bone we're looking at as far as the osteon is concerned there. Okay, lacunae, remember those spaces where, as far as chondrocytes are concerned for cartilage, would be present. Now, as far as bone is concerned, there's lacunae present. Okay, you'll see here that these canaliculi are these little tiny canals, and you'll see here this perforating canal. This kind of connects those different central canals. So the central canals are perpendicular to, actually the perforating canal is perpendicular to the central canal. That's the way to put it. So the central canals are parallel to the surface of compact bone. The perforating canal goes kind of crossways. So let me see if I can show you on images here again. Let's look here. So here we would have, as far as, no, let me go to another image then. Give me one moment. Here we go. This is going to do it. I'll share this image. I'll share all my images with you that I used tonight, folks, okay? So here we have, right? Here we have the osteon. It's pulled out, but here are all these osteons present within compact bone. Here's spongy bone, right? And then what you're not seeing is the canal here you're seeing, but the canal would be filled with yellow marrow. You're just not seeing the yellow marrow present within the canal here. Again, the spongy bone is covered in endosteum. The compact bone is covered in periosteum. You'll see here that we have, this represents a central canal, and then here would represent this perforating canal, or this Volkmann's canal, that connects each of these central canals of osteons. Okay, again, I'll share this image with you also. Okay, and let's see what else. Come here. So when we're looking at spongy bone, so there are this meshwork, or this, what else would we say? Lattice, L-A-T-T-I-C-E, lattice work of bone. This would be these rods of bone, the trabeculae. So hence, cancellous bone, spongy bone is also known as trabecular bone. And what will happen here is that the bone marrow fills the spaces between the trabeculae, right? So there are blood vessels passing through as well as bone marrow. And again, we've talked about red and yellow marrow. So red marrow, it's hematopoiesis is the term used for blood cell formation, synthesis, production. So it would be hemopoietic tissue. It's red bone marrow, okay? And so flat bone, ends of bone would contain this red marrow. Yellow marrow contains adipose tissue, and this is in the medullary cavity, the shafts of long bone. Okay. And then we have, as far as the different bones and such, and like I said, I'm not going to review the bones with you all. I've done that with you before in class, but I will do this with you as far as to show you this last slide. And we've talked about these terms, the diaphysis and the epiphysis, and know that the epiphyseal plate is also known as the growth plate. So let me write that term down for you. So I would ask that you would write that down, please, right here. Okay. So the epiphyseal plate and its hyaline cartilage. Okay. Epiphyseal plate, the growth plate, is hyaline cartilage. Allows for longitudinal growth of long bone. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to exit from the PowerPoint, and I'm going to look at the notes here. So we have here, folks, as far as notes are concerned. So again, I've posted this in Unit 3 of Documents and Resources, and this discusses the articulations from Chapter 8, okay? As well as, and I'm going to move this up here, as well as there are pathologies, different disorders that you'll see here as far as, so it's giving you information here, talking about range of motion, and then different types of injuries, and a review of sprain, and I talked also about strain, right? And then also, so dislocation, subluxation, bursitis, tendinitis, arthritides, and you'll see them listed here. Okay. All right, so I'd like you to take a look at that, and then what I'll do is the next time that we meet online on Monday night, okay, so Monday night at 6, the whole class will meet online in a remote class, the same link, but again, we'll start again at 6 o'clock on Monday evening. I'll review and go over with you the articulations. I just want you to look at this first prior to me discussing and talking about it, and then have you also then, if you have any questions, I'd be glad to help you with that. Okay. All right, folks. So remember that next week, we're not having our practical. We're not having our test number 2. It's postponed for one more week in advance. Again, next week I'm having my procedure on Wednesday. So on Monday, I'm going to lecture. Okay, so Monday night, I'm going to lecture, and on Wednesday, then I'll share some video with you all also. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop recording, and I'll post this tomorrow.